The number one thing that I've seen blindside group practice owners is their clinicians leaving. It's a really horrible thing when you have a small practice, even a medium-sized practice, and one or multiple therapists leave, taking a bunch of clients and a bunch of revenue with them. Even if you invested a lot of time, money, attention, energy to build up their caseloads, they're gone, right? And so today in this video, I want to walk you through the best preventative measure, which is the right hiring model for your practice. I'm not getting into as many tactics on the how do we generate interviews. This is how do we want to think about the people that are in your organization. And this is based off the best possible group practices. I've worked with so many group practice owners with 30 clinicians, 50 clinicians who have done this hundreds of times. I've done this myself in our group practices. In this video, I'm going to show you how you need to think about hiring. Okay, this is the right way to hire. A lot of group practice owners just want to hire a good clinician. There's a lot more to it, right? So there's three main things I want to talk through when it comes to the right hire in your practice. Number one is they need to be a good quality clinician, right? And what I mean by that is they need to be someone who is trained in your modality or can become trained, somebody that people like being with in the room. The real reality, talking to so many different owners, is if your clinician doesn't have the right personality, retaining clients is hard, right? They can be doing their work by the book. If people don't want to be in the same room as them, it's hard to retain people, which means you're not going to make a lot of money as an owner, right? And we do have to think about this from a profit lens, right? If you're going to invest in your clinician, if they're going to be representative of your brand, they need to be good. Okay, so good quality clinician. What's the second thing? I say this, and this is directly from the best group practice owners I know. I've asked so many of them, what do you think about when it comes to hiring? You've hired hundreds of people. One clinician I talked to last year who had built a practice to almost 10 million, hundreds of therapists over 10, 15 years, said the number one trait was their desire to learn. This really hits at the heart of what we want to think about when it comes to hiring in a group practice. We want to answer that question. Why would they go with you versus somewhere else? One of the best possible reasons is that they have a lot to learn, right? And that doesn't just mean they have a lot to learn on the very basics and how to use an EHR. It means that they want to develop as a clinician. They understand that this might be a multi-year process, okay? So the second one, desire to learn. And this will go into my third piece that I think is incredibly important. These are people that want to be there for the long term. And when I say long term in the context of group practice, it's 3 to 4 years. Now, why do I say this? Oftentimes, if you're building up a clinician, and if we're thinking about this, and we're thinking about people that are coming right out of school, it might take them 6 months to a year to get into their stride, to start seeing some clients. If people leave after a year and a half, 2 years, they just go launch out on their own, and this is always happening, you're always going to be spending the time and the money to get new people in the door, onboard them, train them, fill up their caseload, and they're going to leave. And this is creating the hamster wheel that burns out so many group practice owners. You need to fight to stop that at all costs. This is a people management game, and managing brand new people every 6 months is what makes this exhausting. Investing in people for them to leave makes this exhausting. And so you want to be selective. You want to have the skills to generate a lot of volume of applicants to pick the absolute best people. And you want to think about people that will have a likelihood of staying with you for a long period of time. Now, this might mean some stay with you only for 2 years and some stay with you for 6 years. Still, if you can average out to 3 to 4 years, this is going to be your best chance at feeling really stable and profitable in your group practice. Okay, so how do we do this, right? I've had a lot of group practice owners ask me, okay, how do I keep them beyond a certain amount of time? Especially if I'm in a state like California where they have to work somewhere else for their associateship. Once they get fully licensed, why would they stay with me? This is where you really want to think about a trajectory. And this a lot of times is business 101, but we don't always think about this in group practice, but it's staging out 1 through 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and we're going to see that there's this trajectory of these clinicians in our practice, right? I often see that the first 1 to 2 years might be similar, especially if your model is bringing people right out of graduate school or a year or so after and bringing them into the group practice. You might have developed a simple onboarding system, some training check-ins. They might have supervision within that time. And we see many times it's after someone has gone through 500 days, several thousand sessions that they feel really, really competent as a clinician. Those initial stages, they don't, right? And so they're just building up competency that whole time. This is incredibly common. And even if you bring someone in who's maybe fully licensed, depending on their level of experience managing a caseload in private practice, it's going to take 6 months, a year, year and a half, depending on the person, to build up a high level of competency. And this should really be nourished and engaged, like I said, with supervision, with a mentorship program, with clinical training, with bringing in people outside to help train your clinicians. You want to really invest in this period. Now, this period, 3 years, 4 years, I'm going to say is where the business stability lies, is where the profitability lies. And so how do we do this? I was just talking with one of my clients last week about this. And the reality is, even if there's a lot of stable tracks for the first year or two in your organization, everyone's going to have a bit of a different path from there. We might think that this person goes up, this person goes to the left, right, at the 3-year mark. And what I've seen happen here is some of your clinicians want to become supervisors themselves. And so this is an amazing thing, right? They're stepping up in your organization. They're taking on a high level of responsibility. You want to have a certain percentage of clinicians that are going to do this. Not everyone's going to be able to be a supervisor, right? Not everyone's going to want to be a supervisor and take on that level of responsibility, but that becomes a very clear track, right? Hey, if you're doing really well, you can step up into our mentorship program, into our supervision program. You could eventually become a clinical director. You want to be scouting out for the talent of clinicians that are coming into your organization that you can bring up. Beyond that, what else might there be? Okay, let's say community outreach, right? Maybe somebody wants to help be engaged in getting the name of your practice out there, getting out into the community, doing some pro bono work or holding groups. They might have a level of responsibility outside of their own caseload. And that's a fantastic way for them to feel like they're continuing to grow, right? And for them to continue to actually grow within the organization, right? Somebody else might just want to have even more clinical development, right? And they might become highly specialized. They might really find their niche around year 2, and you want to help point them to more and more targeted training so they can develop even further. Not all clinicians are going to want to only focus on that, right? And so we can see supervision, clinical development, like being a better clinician versus supervising community outreach. Someone else might be wanting to get into business operations. They might serve in a bit of an admin role or help you to do your job as an owner. The important thing here is you want to be thinking ahead on what are the different tracks that can help people's growth trajectory to continue past year 2. It's often going to be in these different categories, and you want to ask your clinicians, hey, like, what do you want to do now? What's your next sort of target? If they just want to go out on their own, you're going to have some people that want to do that. But if you can get 60%, 80%, 90% to have something else that they can look forward to within your organization, that's how you're going to have the best possible group practice. And knowing this too, we want to make sure that we're interviewing and telling people this, especially if you've been in group practice for a while. Just make it the expectation and tell them why, right? Like, we invest a ton in you, right? And it takes a long time for us to get to a stable place, and we want to keep investing in you, right? So for most of our clinicians that come in, we ask for 3 to 4 years. Is that something that you can do? And if they can't do it and they just want to start a group practice or their own practice as quick as possible, then they might not be a good fit for your group practice, okay? We want people that want to learn. This is far and away my favorite way to do group practice. There are ways where you can have a very small, tight-knit group, 2, 5, 8 people that stay for a really long time because they have a really high percentage split. Most group practice centers are going to have to be in here, right? And might be taking people who are younger or taking people who just want a safe place to land and not focus on the business operations maybe after being in private practice for a while. This is the way that we're going to think about it here. Okay, so my last point is prevention versus growth, right? I talk about growth all the time, and we want to do the right marketing and business operations. We want to have a profitable model. The thing that will hurt your profit the most is your clinicians leaving. And it likely will happen if it hasn't happened yet, right? And so you want to know this ahead of time so that you can get ahead of it. And this means if you have 5 clinicians and 1 leaves, you're not as hurt as if you've got 2 clinicians and 1 leaves, right? You want to be continuing to grow. You want to be profitable. You want to have money tucked away. You want to recognize that clinicians might leave, and you want to be active in keeping them. All of these things are what stack in your favor, where you're not blindsided. You don't take on a bunch of expenses and then you can't afford it because clinicians leave and they took a bunch of revenue with them. You're setting up to be ahead of the curve. So this is the right way to hire in group practice. I've seen it wrong so many times. I want you to do it right. And if you like this is what I do with my one-to-one clients in our mastermind. You can check the link in the description for that. We've also got a 7-figure plan so you can see the full scope of how we help group practice owners to scale.